Hello there, Patreons. Welcome to this week's Q&A. Sorry I'm a day late on this one. I just ended up getting home too late last night. But I do have some sort of interesting news. Patreon finally got back to me. And I'll read their email word for word, and then we could interpret it the way we want, hopefully. Hello, I'm from the Trust and Safety team here at Patreon, and I'd be happy to provide some clarification. As you may already know, our current terms of service do not allow giveaways or raffles to be hosted on Patreon. This includes something in which a Patreon's pledge increases, their chances to win increase as well. I never did that anyway, so everybody from $1 all the way up is the same. Continuing. The goal here is that Patreon should be guaranteed to receive something in return for their pledge. When a Patreon is buying chances to win by pledging, that's outside our terms of use and gets into gambling. So I'm starting to at least understand a little bit why they banned giveaways and stuff, because that stops people from opening Patreon accounts just to do giveaways and gambles and stuff. All right, understandable. Continuing. I understand that people love the thrill of winning something, so here are a couple of ways you can do so while remaining within our terms. If the giveaway or raffle is open to all of your fans, subscribers, and followers with a no purchase necessary clause, then it would be within our terms. Here's another suggestion. If there is a limited number of items to give away, then there could be a higher reward tier that has a limited number of patrons who could pledge at that level. This guarantees that all of the patrons in that reward tier receive what they pledge for. I hope I provided clarification here. If you need additional assistance or guidance, or have any other questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm here to help. Kind regards. Yeah, okay. So what I gather from this, and I'm not going to do any of that extra tiers thing. I wouldn't want to put people into categories like that. I've had some of my highest donators win stuff, and I've had people on the dollar level win stuff. I would hope that people don't come here for the giveaways, and I treat it as the bonus and kind of a fun little thing. But the key words here is if the giveaway or raffle is open to all of your fans, subscribers, or followers with a no purchase necessary clause, then it would be within our terms. So how about any of the mini giveaways are open to anybody on my Discord server and on my Patreon account, and the monthly giveaways are open to anybody who wants to mail in a chance to win, as well as post on the Patreon page. Is that a little scumbaggy, or does that work for everybody? Please post down below and let me know. I'm really looking to do anything to keep this moving forward. I do kind of gather from the description here that unless that this really was put into place just to stop gambling, and I don't think that I would ever really be bothered just for doing basic giveaways, because that's not at all the focus of this channel. But maybe just doing it that way will fall well within the terms. But either way, let me know on the Patreon page what you think. Post down below today on the Q&A page. Well, let's jump into the Q&As. Jordan Cheston was asking about modding and consoleizing Game Gears. He wanted to know about the Behar Brothers consoleized Game Gear, and I had a prototype of it that I thought was really cool. I ended up adding new ports to it, changing stuff around, because it's me. I gotta fuck with everything I do. I can't just leave something well enough. But I sent all of my work to Yossi, and he liked it. He took the feedback, and I think the next revisions added a lot of the stuff that I had looked into. You gotta love the Behar Brothers. They're always looking to improve their products. They take feedback really well too, so that was cool. So I don't know if they're making any more, but I would totally feel comfortable buying one if they did. And if you have any weird OCD things that you like, you could always take it apart and redo certain things yourself. I don't know if they're selling the consoleized shells on their own. Maybe you should maybe email and ask, because that's a great idea. Because to have all of those Game Gears shipped to Turkey, to do full recaps, to test them all, to consoleize, that's a lot of money. So to just sell the kits would probably be better for everybody. And then just contact a local modder or do it yourself for the rebuilds. But I would 100% say buy the kit if it's affordable. I would guess that it would be not including Tim's TV outboard, just the kit that they make. I would assume that it would be under $100. That's total speculation though, and it's probably not right to put a number on somebody else's product, but it's a decent guess, I would think. And for that, if it is under that, I would just buy it, and if you don't like it, you could always transfer it, because I thought it was really cool. Also, you had asked about the McWill board, and if the scan lines work in VGA mode, or if they only work in VGA mode and not RGB. So I don't think so. I think RGB is just a true output, but you get, if you're running in RGBS RGB mode, you're going to get the natural scan lines of the monitor, so it's going to look like a Master System game. If you were looking for the vertical scan lines as well, I don't think so. Maybe a newer revision added it. Maybe I'm just forgetting. That's always a possibility. But the VGA modes are the ones that have all of the different scan lines and stuff. So I'll leave a link to the video I did, or actually I'll just link to the pages on the website because they have everything embedded. But maybe maybe reach out to the Behar brothers and even McWill to get the direct answers. Sorry, I'm not trying to just pass your questions on to other people. I just want to make sure you get the right info, and my info might be outdated for a lot of that stuff. Pabst Oban asked if there's any point in tracking down GameCube component cables for a PVM and a higher-end consumer-grade TV. Well, I gotta start with an opinion on this one. It's my personal opinion that you shouldn't bother with GameCube component cables unless you're looking to get them for collector's purposes. So if you think like, oh, I've always wanted these, it's a great piece of Nintendo history, I want to own them, absolutely. But it's my opinion that if you're looking to just get better video outputs, better video quality, whatever it is from your GameCube, that you should go to any of the GCVideo solutions, because they might, at the end of the day, end up costing less and getting a better experience. So assuming those two PVMs don't accept 480p, you could still get both component video and RGB from a GCVideo Lite solution. And those you could install internally. You could, if you're doing an RGB thing, you could put it right inside of an NTSC GameCube and wire it up for use with a SNES RGB cable. If you have a PAL GameCube, you don't really need any of that. So if you're in any of the PAL lands, just pick up a GameCube and an RGB cable for it, and you should be totally fine just getting the best signal that way. So the only time you might want to do component cables is if you really only need component and you can get one cheaply. But even then, I would rather use one of the newer solutions and then just kind of put the component cables on my shelf as a collector's item type of thing. So just my opinions on that. Mr. Pete had a good question about resistors. He said he blew up the 75 ohm resistor that does composite out on a Sega Saturn. S-Video works, so he knows the encoder is still alright. Will a 1% tolerance resistor be good to replace it, or do I need even tighter tolerance for video output? The resistor he's talking about is on the Saturn mainboard connected to the CXA. So first of all, how on earth did you blow out the 75 ohm resistor? I've never had that happen before. Also, 1% tolerance is perfect for video specs. I believe some of the resistors used from the companies that did this over the years were like 10%, 5% tolerance resistors. So overall, you'll be definitely fine with 1%. You don't need to go any tighter than that. And for 75 ohm signals, you're talking about, you're talking about something that's going to dial in the correct quality. So yeah, 1% is totally fine. But definitely post about the 75 ohm resistor. I'd love to know the story behind that. Kyle Gamblin had a question about the Dreamcast. He was asking what's better for Dreamcast visual quality, OSSC via VGA or the Acura box. Definitely the OSSC. Remember, it's almost 3 times more expensive, so I'm certainly not shitting on the Behar Brothers box. But the Acura is just a VGA to HDMI converter. That's all it is. It does a good job, but it's just analog to digital, nothing else really. I think it adds scan lines, but the OSSC could do things like fix the aspect ratio because you set it between DTV and VGA mode. You could add scan lines, you could line double to 960p. Start to finish, you're going to be able to get a much better signal doing that through the OSSC. I would recommend using their Toro box, because that way you can get SCART out so that you could put even up to 480p through existing SCART switches, and you could take advantage of the low-pass filter that's built into the SCART port of the OSSC that's not working on the VGA port. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that solution, and there's a few more Dreamcast cables coming out that I'm looking to review eventually. There's Retro Gaming Cables has one coming out soon, the Foo has one out now, and of course the HD Retrovision ones might be done sometime before I die, so I'd love to do those too, but there's a lot of good stuff for Dreamcast. I do realize that about a year ago I put out a part 1 video and never put out a part 2. So maybe if the HD Retrovision cables come out, I'll finally put out the part 2. But yeah, and you had another question. Sorry, you said your Dreamcast can't seem to run Dino Crisis. You know you can get a burned patch copy, but you want to use the original disc. I would suggest checking for the BIOS mods that they offer for them. I know Ben from iFix Retro just did a few. So I'm not sure where you live or who you have access to as modders, but if you lived in New York, that would certainly be an easy solution. But I vaguely remember talking to him about needing a mod chip for different region disks or doing the patching solution. So yeah, hope that answers the questions. Mike W. had a great question, and my answer will be different today as it might be 6 months from now. So just to answer it directly, he loves the Super NT and have really enjoyed collecting the carts he played as a kid. Now he wants to start doing that with Ness cartridges, but can't decide between an NT Mini or a retro USB AVS. So if you want to do this right now, today, buy the AVS. There is nothing wrong with it. I really don't have any complaints at all. There's some things that I would like added to it that may even be added in the future, but zero complaints. It works perfect. It's pretty readily available, although I vaguely remember Retro USB had to shut down their shop for a few weeks while Brian had knee surgery, but you'll still get it within weeks. So if you want to do something now, don't hesitate at all. Just buy it, and if you like something else in the future, you know, it has decent resale value. Maybe you'll want to keep 2. It's worth the money, definitely. But if the NT Mini had been in stock, or if they come out with a cheaper plastic version of it that only does Ness, then you would just want to weigh your options. You know, is 720p okay, or do you have a 1080p TV? Do you need 5x modes? On a 4K TV, you know, how does it scale 720? There's lots of questions to ask. And of course, the NT Mini in its current form, if you wanted to play the other cores on there and didn't mind using ROMs instead of cartridges, as expensive as that was at $500, it's still way, way cheaper than buying all of those original consoles, RGB modding them, buying all the converters that you needed. So, you know, unfortunately, we don't have access to any of that because they didn't announce or even hint at a cheaper version, and you can't buy the NT Mini, and the ones from Hyperkin suck. Which is, you know, that's another sad thing too, is because for the price of the Hyperkins, if Analog said, hey, you know, we'll have stock in January, I might tell you to go buy that Hyperkin one and say, yeah, you know, deal with the video for a short period of time, and then now you have a fun backup system. But unfortunately, Analog has been very quiet about all this stuff. I haven't really reached out to Chris in a while because I was a little offended when I got completely snubbed on this Ness thing, which I know. Shut up, Bob, you're being a big fucking baby. I know, but still, I was pretty offended by that. So maybe I'll suck up my pride and just go ask Chris all these questions. But unfortunately, we're left at the mercy of Analog and what they're both limited or choose to or not to do. So I wish my answer to your question was different because I prefer choices. But right now, the best choice out there for today is the AVS from Retro USB, and it is an excellent choice. So once again, zero complaints, stuff I would like to see on it, but nothing wrong with it the way it is. So hopefully that wasn't too long of a rant about Analog, but I just wanted to make sure I was clear for my answer. Mike Zip had a couple of pretty good questions. First is, any information out there on how to repair a Sega Saturn no disc issue? He can't seem to get anything to work. He's replaced the laser, done a full recap, adjusted the laser potentiometer, and lubed the laser assembly rails, but can't get it to read a disc. So I think you said blindly adjusted the laser potentiometer. You really should use an oscilloscope for that. People that have done it a million times could kind of get a feel for it, but without a scope, you could blow out the laser. You could there's a lot, or at the very least, you could reduce the life of your brand new laser. So I would try doing that with a scope. I keep meaning to do a video of how to do that, but I just no time. Typical bullshit Bob excuse. But I hope to get to that at some point. But I would absolutely make sure that you check the pot with a scope to make sure it's exactly what you need. And also, if you replace the caps, that means there's a slight chance that the old caps were bad. Look very carefully for any broken traces on the motherboard, because that's something that just happened to a BVM from Cousin Scott. Wouldn't turn on anymore. So brought it to a buddy of mine who took a look, and he found a board that wasn't one of the input boards. You had to take the whole thing apart, and a cap had leaked and ruined one of the traces. Luckily, it was very visible, so he just cleaned it up, patched the trace, replaced the caps, and that was good. But that could be it. So if it's not any of those, you might want to contact Jose. Find him on Twitter. I think you're pretty close, so you could probably just come down and drop it off at the shop or something next time we have one of the meetups. But he would probably be able to take a better look because he's the expert and stuff like that. Another question, when I plug my Neo Geo MVS into my PVM, the screen tears and scrolls. Does this mean I need a sync stripper or something else? I'm using the Windy Gaming Supergun and a Genesis 2 RGB cable. The cable might be an older version. So this is where a scope would really come in handy, because you want to see what you're getting at the end of that. You want to see what voltage you're getting. You want to see on on the line that comes down on the square wave. You want to see if the bottom of that is all crazy, because Neo Geo signals are weird enough as it is, and it also depends on the model of your PVM. So I had the 20M2U, which I absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite monitors. A friend of mine got it. Jose recapped it. Looked perfect. And I also have back there the 14M2U, which works exactly like the 20M2U. And those things accept whatever you throw at it. I'd be willing to bet that if you hooked it up to that one, it would probably work. And if it didn't, that means there's something serious going on inside the setup. So I would start, if you don't have access to a scope, check out the videos that I did. That $100 one might be worth buying. If not, let me know next time you're around the city. Swing by one of the places that I hang out at, and we'll just plug your setup up to a scope and check it there. But I would absolutely check the sync signal out first. There's also weird issues with Neo Geos that could be addressed afterwards, but just seeing what voltage and what the wave at the bottom looks like, that would probably give a much better clue to all of these things. Also, about that cheap $100 scope, I don't know if it's fast enough to do laser calibration. I haven't had time to test that yet, so sorry. Any last question, is there a way to load games onto a Playmore Thomas Wave arcade system? I'm thinking of this because of that system they have at iFix Arcade, where they have the Naomi, where they load images on it via the network. I don't know what a Playmore Atmoswave arcade system is. Or maybe I do, I'm just not recognizing the name. So that's a great question. Anybody listening be able to help? Yeah, sorry, I have no info on that last one. But keep me updated on the Neo Geo stuff, or if you're going to be in the area, and we'll try to figure it out. And if I find out if that cheap $100 scope can do CD calibration, at this point you might as well just buy one, because it really, if you're using super guns and all of this different equipment that I know you have, it would probably be a big help for your work. Adam W. has a few questions. I only know the answers to some of them, so bear with me, and maybe anybody who knows the other answers can chime in. But he said he has a PAL GameCube and wants to know if the Insurrection Industries GCVideo plug-and-play would work if you force 480p for NTSC backups. I think 99.9% yes, because a lot of the testing that I did, that's exactly how I did it with the official GameCube cables years ago. It definitely said NTSC on my monitor when I plugged it in. The captures were NTSC, and the backup was on a chipped PAL GameCube. So unless I'm remembering something very wrong, I would assume yes, it would work. And would the SCART cable still receive RGBS in audio from the multi-out even when the GCVideo plug-and-play is inserted? I believe yes for 240p and 480i, but I don't think for 480p. I think that would shut off the analog outputs. And if you're using it for what you said your main use is, Game Boy interface with a SCART cable, perfect use for it, by the way, I'm pretty sure what would happen is you would just get 240p out of both sources at the same time. I don't know, and I can't confirm because I don't have a PAL GameCube, so if anybody has one, maybe they could chime in down below about that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that would be okay. And I think there might even possibly be an option for forcing 480p output of the GCVideo solution while keeping 240p output of the GameCube. I'm not really sure on that either. Insurrection sent me one of these. I'm supposed to be getting it early next week, and I'm going to do a mini review of it. No disrespect to Insurrection. I feel like it's worth doing a review, but I don't have time to go through the full GCVideo solution yet. So I'm just going to do like a quick 5-minute showing how it works, that it's safe to use, and all that stuff. So I don't have access to a 480 or to a PAL GameCube, but maybe if someone in the Brooklyn scene has it, I could meet them down there and test it out. But I think you should be good, and I think that would be a good solution for your needs. Phil Welker said he needs to grease the plastic gears of a disk drive. Which grease would I suggest, and should he attempt to remove the old grease, or is it just okay to put the new stuff on? I have no idea. Those are great questions. I'm sorry I'm not able to answer so many of these this week. I personally have used lithium grease for a lot of stuff, and that works really, really well. But I don't know if that'll work well for a disk drive. I don't know how lithium grease would mix with other stuff. A lot of the things that I used lithium grease on were like door hinges, which at the end of the day, if a door hinge rots out, I don't give a shit. I'll just go spend $2 on another door hinge. Whereas plastic gears of a disk drive is something I would care about because maybe you can't get replacements, maybe it'll hurt the plastic. Certainly, I would guess that metal hinges of a door frame would probably be a little bit more durable, but that's a great question, and I don't know, and I don't feel comfortable giving a solid recommendation. Just keep lithium grease in the back of your mind and maybe Google what other reputable people have done, and see. If not, ask again next week, and I'll see if I can contact some experts that have done disk drive rebuilds and ask them directly. David Kenyon followed up to his question from last week. Last week the question was he had an issue with using a Saturn plus a G-SCART switch and an OSSC where he had to toggle sync regeneration off and on to fix screen jitter, and he asked if there's a solution to this other than messing with the sync regeneration each time. I suggested that he double check that the components inside the cable are the correct components and match that to what's listed on the site. And he said that he did check, and there are, he said components in the SCART head. Hopefully you checked them and made sure it was the correct value resistor and all that stuff. So at this point, when you plug it directly into the OSSC, does it still have the problem? If not, then maybe it's a weird thing going on with the G-SCART, and I would try another cable just in case. Or another Saturn. So if you have any friends with a Saturn and a cable, tell them to come over, because that would be the best way to test. If you needed to buy another cable, maybe you have an HD Retrovision set laying around, then you just buy that adapter for the Genesis 2. That would certainly be a good way to test. But other than those two, I'm not really sure what else it could be. So try to determine, is it the console, is it the cable? And if you skip the G-SCART, does the problem still happen? And report back again next week. Sorry. If you want to contact me directly, I could probably try for a little bit more quicker of a response than weekly videos. But yeah, now this is the type of thing that's getting a little weird, so sorry. Weird meaning like the issue, not your question, if I wasn't clear. But your other question for this week is, have I ever had a cartridge that wouldn't play that looked spotless inside and out? Yeah, somebody had emailed me pictures once of a Ness cartridge they had that looked flawless, but the resistor had actually died. I wouldn't have expected that to happen, but that was definitely what happened. They replaced the resistor and that worked fine. I've had tons of Ness carts be perfect and have the 72-pin adapter in the Ness go bad. I've had brand new adapters not work right. In everything except the blinking light win. That one always seemed to work fine. I did just buy a new top loader pin adapter that I haven't tried yet, so maybe there's better ones out there. But in the situation that you're describing, my first guess would be check to see if the 72-pin adapter works, so maybe try this cart on another Ness. Second would be look at all the components on it and see if something's out of place. Measure the resistor, read the little stripes and see if you can match it up so you know what resistance you should expect. Remember that they probably used 5 or 10% tolerance resistors back then, so it could be off a little bit. And then somebody else suggested that it could be RAM issues. So I would just go down the lines and troubleshooting. Sorry, David, you seem to have two problems that are not easy to recommend solutions to. I wish you had an easier one that I could just say, oh yeah, flip the switch and you're done. But it looks like both your issues you're going to have to go through and do some troubleshooting steps. But let me know if I could help. John in Brooklyn was following up to an old question and said he wasn't able to get Master System games working on his JVC Xi with the Power-Based Mini, but when he bought a generic adapter from Amazon France, it worked perfectly. So that's weird. Was the Power-Based Mini the FM version? Because I've definitely seen, for example, when you mod a Genesis 3 to have SMS capabilities, SMS games work fine, but when you try to boot into the FM sound chip modes, it won't start at all. It just goes to a black screen. So that's a guess. Other than that, I don't know, and I think Renee would like to know if it's just the basic Power-Based Mini. So please let me know about that. That's a pretty interesting one. Darkstar7 posted about a few things. First, the Sync Slayer from 8-Bit Gasm. He got one of those and he said it worked fine, but can't really say if it worked any better or worse than the Sync Strike. I'd like to try one of those out for myself just to see. If you have a scope, maybe take some screen caps and especially zoom in on the full waveform so that you can see on the bottom, is it all jittery? Is it perfectly straight? Is it the same on both? Is it different? Try to use a clean source, something like maybe like a Saturn or I guess a Super Nintendo would probably work fine too. But if you don't have a scope, I'll just get around to testing that at one of these at some point. And he also tried out the new LCD Zapper mod. I'm assuming that you mean the one, the software version. And I've been trying that out as well too. So far, what I found is that a third-party light gun works better because of the phototransistor diode in there. I think I'm getting that right. I'll have more info on that soon. But the only complaint I have is it works fine 4 feet away from the TV, maybe 3 feet. But once you get 5 or 6 feet away, which is a perfectly normal distance to sit, and a perfectly normal distance to sit from a CRT, it doesn't work on the flat screen. So I need to do a lot more testing. I got to finish up a lot of other videos this week before I even get to that, but I'll do a full video on that soon and hopefully get some more progress. Phil Welker asked what's the difference between Voltaire's SNES bypass board and his open source SNES expansion board. How do the two compare? The SNES expansion board is something that just takes all of the pins from the onboard video encoder and moves them over to the multi-out with the correct components in line. So it's essentially the same as doing a do-it-yourself mod, but rather than having resistors and capacitors hanging and dangling and floating around the inside of your SNES, they're all right on this board and all you have to do is solder some wires. It's cheap, anybody could make them, it's totally open source. And that's what I use on my SNES Mini, and I think it's an excellent image. As long as you make sure to wire up all of the wires, including the ones that go to the RGB points that lower the voltage going in, so you get the correct output, it's perfectly fine. The other one uses a THS7374 mod. So you get a brand new amplifier that completely bypasses all of the amplifying chips on the Super Nintendo. It takes the raw RGBS signal from the main video chip, the one chip, and puts it through brand new components. So it also adds the ability to add a low-pass filter, and you could select whether you want TTL sync or 75 ohm C sync, which is something, that last thing, something almost nobody would mess with. You would always want to leave that at TTL exactly like a stock SNES and let the cables do the work just so it matches. But those are features that some people might very specifically need, including people who do streaming work, people who work with Extron equipment. So if you need those extra features, it's a no-brainer. If you're looking to purchase a board, you know, it's really up in the air. It's an easier install for RGB if you use Voltaire's board with the amp chip in it, because you really only need 3 wires. Four wires, sorry. And you could only, you could do everything right on the bottom. You don't need to wrap anything over. There's easy to solder 2 vias right there. But if you have the ability to make your own boards, you know, when you do these comparison shots and I put them together, it's almost indistinguishable. So both are great solutions, and just see which one's best for you. Alex Dowse had some questions about the Atari 5200, which is a console I know almost nothing about. So the Atari page on my site right now has all 3, the 2600, 5200, and 7800. I'm going to be separating that at some point because they obviously all deserve their own page. But if you scroll down on that page, you'll see the 5200 has a mod called the Sophia, which is, as far as I could tell, a fairly easy mod to do. And it could output either RGB or DVI, depending on what you need. So you're totally set for that if you want to use original equipment. There's also things like power mods, and I think there's ROM carts for it and all that. So you have a pretty good selection. There's also replacement controllers that, from what I've heard, are amazing. Really excellent, high quality. You mentioned Best Electronics. I think that's the place I'm thinking of that has those. So if you're looking for them, you know, they're expensive, but you get what you pay for. Everybody I know that's purchased from them said they're excellent. So, you know, other than that, though, I really got nothing else on the 5200 for you. I'm hoping to get people in to contribute on the website that could help write the pages for the site, or for the consoles that I don't really have too much knowledge on. So, like, for example, if my Ness page miraculously deleted tomorrow, I could probably rewrite everything just by memory and, you know, just take new pics, because that's something I've been working on and since the website started on a regular basis. But, like, if the Atari section died, I'd have to relook everything up, and I would really prefer to have experts working on that. But I've talked to a few more people about contributions, doing crossover work and stuff, so hopefully it'll happen, and hopefully as more people start to work on the site, these things will start to happen a lot quicker. So I'll keep everybody posted, but yeah, it's I'm the wrong person to ask for Atari 5200 stuff, sorry. Jordan Cheston was having a problem running the main version of the Game Boy interface software through a GC Dual into a PVM. Try an older version of the Game Boy interface software. Probably have some on my website at some place. You could find them floating around. If not, I might be able to email you some. But try that first and then report back, because I think that might fix the issue. And if it does, then we can go from there. I don't want to speculate until we see, though. Well, that's it for the Q&As. Anybody that has any questions for next week, post in the Patreon page for this video. So wherever this video is posted on Patreon, post down below, and I'll answer your questions next week. The comments are always disabled on the YouTube videos because this is really a Patreon-only thing that I do like to share with everybody else after about a month or so. So anybody new to the channel and new to the Q&As, that's you know, that's kind of why things are the way they are. And also, I just opened a Patreon-only Discord server, so the link is on the page. You could jump right in there if you feel like talking. I am in there under RG Bob. I've been trying really hard since I started the website to make sure that people know the website as Retro RGB as well as the channel, and know me as Bob. Sometimes I don't do a great job of that, but yeah, especially with more people contributing to the website nowadays, I want to make sure that anything I do or say, especially when I get mouthy, I don't want that to reflect on the other contributors of the site. So I'm under RG Bob, and I'll eventually probably switch all of my other screen names. It's just more things to add to the long list of crap I gotta do. So please jump on and say hi. Be nice to each other. Everybody has been so far. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys all next week. Also, I just bought a brand new mouse where you can't hear the clicks. Unfortunately, I forgot to use it until just this video. Sorry. But hopefully now you won't hear the clicks between sections anymore. So I guess we'll find out for the next few videos I put out. And you know, as always, if there's any stuff like that that you have feedback, feel free to let me know, because Voltaire has repeatedly verbally abused me about he hates the sound of the mouse clicking. So that's why I bought the new mouse, and it seems to work. Now if I could only just remember to use the darn thing, those sounds will be gone. But anyway, see you guys next week.